Long ago, after God made the world, Adam and Eve had two sons. The first son was named Cain, and the second son was named Abel. Cain worked on the land. Abel took care of sheep. One day, both brothers brought gifts to God. Abel gave God the best from his sheep, and God was pleased. Cain also brought an offering, but God did not accept it. This made Cain very angry. Why did God accept Abel's gift but not Cain's? What happened inside Cain's heart when jealousy began to grow? And how did one quiet moment change the world forever? This Bible story is full of suspense, strong feelings, and important lessons about choices, anger, and God's mercy. If this is your first time seeing our video, please kindly subscribe for more Bible stories. Also, share this video with someone you love and comment below what lesson you learned from this story. And tell us where you are watching from. Let's begin this powerful Bible story together. As you watch, may the Lord bless you and fulfill your heart desires. Amen. What happens when jealousy takes over the heart of a brother? Cain's anger grows quietly, but one choice changes everything forever. A moment of trust, a quiet field, and a single act that shakes the world. God sees it all, yet his mercy still lingers in unexpected ways. Will Cain find peace, or will the weight of his actions follow him forever? Please tell us the country and city you are watching from. It means a lot to us to see that our gospel content is reaching the world. Let the Lord fulfill all your heart desires as watch till the end. Also let us know at the comments section what you're able to learn. As you like, subscribe and share. In the ancient times, before cities, before schools, before cars, before books, there was a quiet world that God had made. The sky was wide and blue. The land was fresh and new. The wind moved gently across the earth, just like a soft breath. In this new world lived the first man and woman God created. Their names were Adam and Eve.
They talked with God. They learned from God. God taught them how to live, how to care for the land, and how to trust him. After some time, something wonderful happened. Eve had a baby. This was the first baby ever born in the world. Eve held the baby close and smiled. She said, "With the Lord's help, I have brought a man into the world." They named the baby Cain. Cain grew little by little. He learned to walk. He learned to talk. He learned to watch his parents work. The world was still quiet then. There were no crowds, no loud noises, just family, land, and God. After some time, Eve had another baby. This baby was named Abel. Abel was Cain's younger brother. Cain was now the older brother. Abel was the younger one who followed behind. Adam and Eve loved both boys. They taught them about God. They told them about how God made the world. They told them about obeying God and trusting him. As the boys grew, they became very different from each other. Cain grew strong and serious. He liked working with the ground. He liked digging the soil with his hands. He liked planting seeds and watching them grow. Cain became a farmer. Every morning, Cain went out into the fields. He broke the soil. He planted seeds. He waited for rain. He worked hard. The sun would rise, and Cain would already be working. The sun would set, and Cain would still be thinking about his crops. Abel grew differently. Abel loved the animals. He loved the sheep. He listened to their sounds. He watched them carefully. Abel became a shepherd. Every day, Abel walked with his sheep. He made sure they were safe. He led them to green grass and clean water. He protected them from danger. Abel was gentle. He was quiet. He paid close attention. Both brothers worked hard. Both brothers had important jobs. Both brothers lived under the same sky. But inside their hearts, they were not the same. Cain often looked at his work and felt proud. He saw the plants grow and thought about how hard he worked. Abel often looked at his sheep and felt thankful. He saw life and thought about God. Adam and Eve watched their sons grow. They hoped their sons would always choose what is right. They hoped their sons would love each other. They hoped their family would stay in peace. Time passed. One day, Adam and Eve taught their sons something very important. They taught them about bringing gifts to God. They explained that God gives everything: life, food, breath, and love. And people can show love back to God by giving him gifts. Cain listened. Abel listened. Each brother began to think about what he would give to God. Cain looked at his fields. He saw fruits and plants. He chose some from what he had grown. Abel looked at his sheep. He saw his flock. He chose one of the best. The day came when both brothers brought their gifts. The land was still. The air was quiet. It was a serious moment. Cain brought his gift from the ground. Abel brought his gift from his flock. God saw both brothers. God saw their gifts. God also saw their hearts. This moment, this quiet moment, was about to change the story forever. Cain stood there waiting. Abel stood there waiting. Neither brother spoke. Then something happened that Cain did not expect. God accepted Abel's offering. But God did not accept Cain's offering. The Bible does not say God hated Cain. The Bible does not say God stopped loving him. But God was not pleased with Cain's gift. Cain noticed. Cain felt it. Something began to stir inside him. His face changed. His hands tightened. His heart felt hot and heavy. Cain was angry. Very angry. Abel did not say a word. Abel did not smile. Abel did not boast. But Cain could not stop looking at him. Cain's thoughts became loud inside his mind. Why him? Why not me? I worked hard. I did my job. Cain's anger did not come out as words.
It stayed inside. And inside it grew. God saw Cain's anger. God did not turn away from Cain. God spoke to Cain. God's voice was calm. God's words were kind. God asked Cain a question. Why are you angry? Why is your face so sad? God wanted Cain to think. God wanted Cain to stop and choose wisely. God then warned Cain. God said that if Cain did what was right, he would be accepted. But if Cain chose what was wrong, sin was waiting to take control of him. Sin was like a wild animal, ready to jump, but Cain could still choose. Cain heard God's words. The warning was clear. The chance was real. Cain stood there. He could calm his heart. He could talk to God. He could change. But Cain stayed silent. The anger stayed inside him. The sun continued to rise and set. Days passed. Cain worked in the field. Abel walked with his sheep. They were still brothers. They still lived near each other. But something was broken inside Cain's heart. The quiet world that God had made was no longer peaceful inside him. And Cain did not know that his next choice would bring a sadness the world had never known before. This is where the story pauses. This is where the danger begins. This is the moment before everything changes. Time passed quietly after that day, but inside Cain nothing was quiet anymore, because every morning when Cain walked into the field, the ground felt different under his feet, and every night when he lay down to rest, his thoughts would not sleep, and even though the sun still rose and the wind still blew, Cain felt a storm growing inside his heart. A storm made of thoughts he did not say out loud. Thoughts that whispered again and again that something was not fair. And each time Cain remembered how God accepted Abel's offering but did not accept his own. His chest felt tight and his face grew hard, and Cain did not talk about these feelings to God, and he did not share them with his parents, and he did not speak them to Abel. He held them inside his heart. And the more he held them, the heavier they became, because anger that is hidden does not go away. It grows, and as Cain worked the soil, pulling weeds and planting seeds, he began to compare himself to his brother, and comparison slowly turned into jealousy, and jealousy slowly turned into bitterness, and bitterness quietly pushed love out of Cain's heart. And Abel noticed that his brother was quieter than before, but Abel did not know why, and Abel continued to care for his sheep, leading them gently and watching over them with patience. And when Abel looked at the sky, he thought of God. But when Cain looked at the sky, he thought of his anger, and even though God had already spoken to Cain and warned him that sin was waiting, Cain chose not to listen, and the warning stayed in the air like a voice fading into silence, and Cain began to feel that Abel was the reason his heart hurt. Even though Abel had done nothing wrong, and one day, as the brothers were near each other, Cain spoke to Abel and his voice sounded calm, but his heart was not calm, and Cain asked Abel to come with him into the field, and Abel trusted his older brother, because Abel had no reason to fear him, and the field was wide and quiet,
with no one else around, only the sound of the wind and the soft ground beneath their feet. And as they walked, Abel did not know that this walk would be his last, and Cain did not know that the choice he was about to make would follow him forever. And in that silent field, Cain let his anger rule him, and Cain attacked his brother Abel, and Abel fell, and the life that God had given him was taken away, and the earth received the first blood it had ever known, and the world changed in that moment, because death had entered human life for the first time. And Cain stood there, and the anger that had burned so hot suddenly disappeared, and in its place came fear. Cain looked at Abel lying on the ground, and nothing moved, and nothing spoke, and the silence was heavier than anything Cain had ever felt. And Cain realized too late that anger cannot be undone once it turns into action. God saw what had happened, because nothing is hidden from him, and God came to Cain and asked him a question. Not because God did not know the answer, but because God wanted Cain to speak the truth, and God said, "Where is your brother Abel?" And Cain answered God with a lie, saying that he did not know. And then Cain spoke words that showed how far his heart had gone, saying, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And those words echoed with selfishness and distance, because Cain had forgotten that people are meant to care for one another. And God answered Cain with truth, telling him that Abel's blood cried out from the ground. And Cain understood that God knew everything, and fear wrapped around Cain like a shadow. And God then spoke about the punishment that would come, explaining that the ground would no longer give Cain its strength, and Cain would become a wanderer, moving from place to place, without rest. And when Cain heard this, he was afraid, not because he was sorry for what he had done, but because he feared what would happen to him. And Cain said that his punishment was more than he could bear, and he worried that others might find him and kill him. And in this moment something surprising happened, because even though Cain had sinned greatly, God still showed mercy, and God placed a mark on Cain, a sign that no one should harm him. And this mark was not a reward, but a protection, showing that God alone decides life and justice. And Cain then left the place where his family lived and went away to the land of Nod, east of Eden. And Cain carried with him the memory of his choice and the weight of it. And the story of Cain and Abel became a lesson written into human history, showing that anger ignored can grow into something terrible and ungodly. From this act, sin begins in the heart before it shows in actions, and that God warns before he judges, and that even when punishment comes, God's mercy is still present. And the quiet field where Abel fell became a silent witness to the power of choice, a reminder that listening to God leads to life, but refusing to listen can bring sorrow. And this part of the story ends with Cain walking away, not chased, not struck down, but marked, protected, and alone, carrying the knowledge that one moment of uncontrolled anger can change everything forever. Cain did not speak about his anger, but it stayed with him everywhere he went. When he woke up in the morning, it was there. When he walked to his fields, it followed him. When he worked the soil with his hands, it pressed deeper into his heart. The ground felt harder than before. The sun felt hotter. The air felt heavy. Cain pulled weeds and planted seeds, but his thoughts were not calm. His mind kept returning to that moment when God accepted Abel's offering and did not accept his. Cain replayed it again and again in his thoughts. He remembered standing there. He remembered waiting. He remembered the feeling that came when he knew that feeling would not leave him. Abel continued his work with the sheep. He walked them to grass. He watched them drink water. He listened to their soft sounds. Abel did not act proud. He did not tease Cain. He did not say anything at all. But Cain noticed everything about Abel. Cain noticed how peaceful Abel seemed. Cain noticed how light Abel's steps were. Cain noticed how calm Abel looked when the day ended. Each time Cain noticed these things, the anger inside him grew stronger. Cain told himself he was right to feel angry. He told himself that he worked hard. He told himself that he deserved to be accepted. These thoughts made the anger feel justified. But the anger did not bring peace. It only brought more noise inside Cain's heart. God saw Cain's heart clearly, which isn't good. Nothing is hidden from God. God saw the anger growing like a fire that had not yet burned anything but was ready to burn everything. God did not wait until it was too late. God came to Cain again. God spoke to Cain with care. God's voice was not loud. God's words were not harsh. God did not shout. God asked Cain why he was angry. God asked Cain why his face looked so dark and sad. God wanted Cain to think about his feelings. God wanted Cain to understand what was happening inside him. God explained something very important. God told Cain that doing what is right brings acceptance. God told Cain that choosing what is wrong allows sin to take control. God warned Cain that sin was waiting like something alive, ready to grab him if he let it. God also told Cain that he still had a choice. Cain could rule over sin. Cain could stop. Cain could turn back. Cain listened to God's words with his ears, but his heart did not change. The warning was clear, but Cain did not answer God. Cain did not say sorry. Cain did not ask for help. Cain did not talk about what he was feeling. He kept everything inside. The days continued. Morning came and evening followed. Cain and Abel crossed paths as they always had. They lived in the same land. They shared the same family. But the space between their hearts grew wider. Cain's thoughts became darker. He thought about his anger more than he thought about God. He thought about Abel more than he thought about his own choices. The anger stopped being just a feeling. It became a plan forming quietly inside him. Cain's face often looked hard. His eyes no longer rested. His mind was busy. Abel remained unaware of the danger growing so close to him. Abel trusted his brother. Abel walked freely. Abel spoke kindly when they passed each other. Abel did not know that Cain's heart was no longer at peace. God's warning stayed true every moment. Sin was waiting. It was close. It did not rush. It waited patiently. Cain had many chances to stop. Each step he took closer to his anger was a step away from peace. Cain could have remembered God's words. Cain could have chosen humility. Cain could have chosen to do better next time. But Cain allowed his anger to guide him. He believed the anger. He fed the anger. He carried it with him until it felt normal. One day Cain spoke to Abel. His voice sounded calm. Nothing in his tone warned Abel of danger. Cain suggested they go out into the field together. Abel agreed. He trusted his brother. Brothers had walked together many times before. The field was open and quiet. The sky stretched wide above them. The ground lay still beneath their feet. No one else was there. The wind moved softly. This was the place Cain chose. This was the moment Cain allowed the anger to take control. God's warning echoed silently in the background of the world. But Cain did not listen anymore. The anger was no longer just inside him. It was ready to act. The calm field hid the storm that was about to break. Cain's heart beat fast. His thoughts raced. Abel walked beside him, unaware. This was the edge of the choice. This was the last moment before sin would move from waiting to action. And the world stood on the edge of its first great sorrow. Cain and Abel were still brothers living on the same land, waking under the same sky, breathing the same air God had made. Each morning came quietly and each night fell gently, but inside Cain's heart the quiet was gone. The Bible tells us that Cain spoke to his brother Abel. That is all it says, and that is enough to make the moment heavy and serious. Cain spoke, and Abel listened. They walked together, just as brothers had done many times before. They walked out into the field. The field was open and wide. There were no walls, there was no crowd. There was only land beneath their feet and sky above their heads. This place was familiar to them, but what would happen there had never happened anywhere before in the world. The Bible says that while they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. That one sentence holds a great weight. The first time a life was taken. The first time a brother harmed a brother. The first time death entered the human story. Abel did not see it coming. The Bible does not say Abel fought back. The Bible does not say Abel said a word. The Bible simply tells us what happened and then it moves forward, because what Cain did could not be undone. When Abel fell, the field became silent. The sheep Abel once watched were no longer with him. The brother who walked beside Cain no longer walked at all. Cain stood alone with what he had done. The anger that once burned inside him was gone, but it left something colder behind. Fear moved into Cain's heart. Where there had been jealousy, there was now shaking. Where there had been pride, there was now dread. The ground beneath Abel received his blood, and the earth, which God had made good, now held sorrow for the first time. The Bible does not describe Cain's face, but it tells us enough. Cain had chosen sin, just as God warned him. Sin did not knock gently, sin took control. The quiet world was changed forever. The Bible pauses at this moment because it matters. The field becomes a place of warning, where silence speaks louder than words and choices carry weight, even when no one seems to be watching. This is where Cain and Abel's story moves from warning to consequence, from emotion to action, from choice to judgment. The earth, which once only knew life, now bears witness to the first loss. After Abel was gone, God came to Cain and asked a simple but powerful question. "Where is your brother Abel?" As he asked initially, Cain in his mischievous mind knew the answer to God's question. He had been there. He remembered the field and the silence. Yet he chose to lie to God as the first man to life to God. He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" This was the first lie spoken to God in the Bible. But God already knew the truth. Your brother Abel's blood cried out from the ground, showing that life mattered and that nothing could be hidden in the sight of God. God judged Cain fairly. The ground that received Abel's blood would no longer give Cain its strength. The land would resist him. Cain would become a restless wanderer on the earth. These words were heavy, and Cain understood that his life had changed forever. Fear filled Cain's heart. He said his punishment was more than he could bear. He feared being hidden from God and being killed by others. For the first time, Cain, who had taken a life, was afraid of losing his own. God listened. Even in judgment, he showed mercy. God declared that anyone who killed Cain would be punished severely, and he placed a mark on Cain, not for shame but for protection. Though Cain had sinned greatly, God preserved his life. This revealed both God's justice and his mercy. Cain then left the presence of the Lord and traveled east of Eden to the land of Nod, a land of wandering. He lived with the weight of his choice. Life continued, but peace did not return. Cain later had a family, built a city, and named it after his son, Enoch. Humanity moved forward, but the warning remained. Cain's story teaches that anger, when left unchecked, leads to destruction. Sin separates. Choices carry consequences. Yet even after great failure, God sets limits on harm and allows life to continue. Cain lived, but he lived with memory. He walked, but he walked with regret. The Bible does not tell us that he ever returned or spoke with God again. His story fades quietly, leaving behind a lasting lesson. God warns before sin, judges righteously, and still shows mercy. This is the story of Cain, the first man to lie to God, the first wanderer on earth, the first marked man in the Bible, and the first witness to the heavy balance between sin and mercy. If you enjoyed this story, please kindly like, comments, and subscribe to this faith-based channel. Please, where are you watching from? We want to know the country and city you are in to know how far the gospel has gone through our faith-based channel. We pray that God bless you and all your heart desires. Amen. Remain blessed and see you in our next video.